Chapter presents the Upper Ottawa River region. Take it away. All right, welcome to Muskies Canada official. I think we will get rid of very quickly Brian.
Yeah, and yourself. And I just wanted to take this moment before we introduce Kert and Jaime. I worked really hard with this segment for them, and as well as the Muskies Canada team. This entire Odyssey team has done some incredible work behind the scenes. I want to thank them for allowing CFN to be a huge part of this. And this segment alone is the testament to the amount of work that has gone into it. But as I said, before I introduce Jaime and Kert from the Upper Valley chapter, there is a segment here from Tyler Duncan, who is currently on duty in Latvia, and he wanted to share a message with all of you. So here it is.
Good day from the Valley. Tyler Duncan here, chapter chair of the Upper Valley chapter in Muskies, Canada. I just wanted to take a minute and explain why our club is so unique inside Muskies, Canada. Our club is located in Petawawa, and because of that, most of our members are serving military members. Why is that so different? Most of our chapter members are often find themselves away or on training for missions. Currently, 5 of our members are deployed on international operations, myself being one of them, currently in Latvia. Just want to take a second before handing it over to the presenters to briefly introduce them. I want to have the distinct pleasure of introducing 2 of my good friends. First, Kert, Lavigne, renowned muskie guide in the Upper Valley. Grew, cut his teeth with muskie fishing in the North Lakes area before moving to the valley, and spent his time guiding both the Madawaska and Ottawa River. My other friend, Jaime Sebastian, also part of the month of the Upper Valley chapter. Is currently a multi-species fish guide with guiding service called Fishing with Jaime, largely specializing in backwood lakes and more recently on the Ottawa River. Over to you guys.
G'day, gentlemen. I'd like to thank Tyler and all the military personnel that are overseas and here in Canada for their service to Canada. I'm a multi-species guide specializing in backwoods lakes from the Ottawa River as far out to the Huntsville region and throughout Algonquin Park. I'll take it over, Kert, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. How you doing, everybody? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me all right? Good. Hi, I'm Kert Lavigne. Welcome to the Upper Valley chapter of Muskies Canada. We're happy to be here today. I have over 35 years muskie experience. I'm a muskie crazy guy like every guy that's out there today watching. I'm also the former chapter chairman of the Upper Valley chapter of Muskies Canada and Toronto chapter. I look forward to speaking with you today on some of my local waterways.
Super. Thank you, Kert. The Ottawa River Upper Valley chapter region is blessed with many musky waters. We have many backwood lakes with pristine fisheries in these waters. The Ottawa River from Madawaska all the way down to Arnprior holds some trophy fish. And today I will talk mostly to you about some of these backwood lakes. We have many lakes north of the Petawawa, all the way up to Madawaska along the Highway 17 corridor and east of Algonquin Park. These lakes hold healthy and natural muskie populations. Lakes such as Corey Lake, Otterson Lake, the James Lakes, Holden Lake up in De Riviere, the Champlain Lake, and Boom Lake up in Madawaska. These lakes you will see multiple fish. And the nice thing about it is you will see some smaller fish as well, which indicates of a healthy population. So how would you like to fish a pristine, almost virgin lake waters with next to no angling pressure? These lakes, you can fish in the solitude of nature. And the nice thing about a lot of these lakes in these backwoods is there is no cell phone reception. Well, these lakes come with a price, and the price is that many of these lakes have horsepower restrictions in the park, with less than 10 horsepower allowed. And for many of the lakes that I'll be talking about, there is no motor allowed, and you have to canoe it, kayak it, or rowboat. And these are the lakes that I will be talking about today. So jump on board and let me take you through this journey. So these are some of the lakes and rivers that you're going to see along the Petawawa River system, from Thompson Falls downstream to McManus Lake. It is a total of 27 kilometers, which includes 17 portages for a total of 11.5 kilometers of portage, with the average portage being approximately 300 meters. So you see here on McManus Lake, that's your boat launch. It's just out of the woods into the lake and away you go. These systems include lakes along the Petawawa River, such as Covio Lake, Whitson Lake, and Smith Lake, and McManus Lake, all holding good numbers of muskellunge. Downstream from McManus Lake and all the way to Black Bay is a military training zone with restricted access, which you are not allowed to cross in there. And the fishing starts once again in the Black Bay with no horsepower restriction. So then it allows you to bring in your big boats. So if you don't have a big boat and have a small tin boat or canoe, these are the waters for you. As muskie anglers, we all seek the best possible muskie structure these waters have. Rocks, weeds, deadheads, sandbars, weed flats, weed beds, and most important, work in the currents. You can't go 50 yards in some of these lakes without going in a straight line, because you're just going to be bumping into deadheads. So make sure if you are using a little motor in some of these lakes that are allowed, that your motor can pop up. This is a picture of my son, which he caught this fish out in Black Bay. Again, these are just some of the pictures of some of the fish that you will encounter in these waters. I like to see the smaller fish, and you will. I've had days where it's multiple fish days, anywhere from 10 to 14 fish, and those that have fished with me will vouch to what I'm saying. This is a picture of the Thompson Falls, just downstream from it, which holds a deep pool and allows you to get into some good sized fish within casting distance into shallow waters. Reasons there's a lot of portage, you can see in these pictures, you do go into some rapids, and unless you're a very good canoeer or kayaker, stick to the portage. I know I do. Again, these are views. A lot of the Petawawa River has tremendous structure. You could be in 4 feet of water, and then all of a sudden you're in a 30-foot drop. Further down in Black Bay, you will have depths of 200 feet, casting distance from shore or right up on the shore. This is a picture of the Natch, which has a small little lake coming out of it and holds tremendous water. The nice thing about these waters is when you're in there, you might see 1 or 2 canoers coming down the river, but pretty much these waters are to yourself when you're fishing them. There's a picture of a fish caught just outside the Natch. So when I go and take people out, a lot of people ask me about Bertha. And Bertha has a home range, and this home range is very unique because it has tremendous structure. The structure on Bertha, she's a resident fish in about a 200-yard stretch of water, and I've been lucky enough to hook into her on three occasions. If we can go to the topo, Scotty. So this is, for those that have fished with me, this is the home of Bertha. If we can keep that picture up, you'll see that when you're coming downstream, the red arrows are the current going through here. You're coming in from 5 to 7 feet of water or less with rocky bottom mixed with some weeds, sandbars on each side, and then you have a deep hole that's 20 to 25 feet on the bottom right. And as the current goes down, it quickly rises on the south end to 3 to 4 feet of water with a huge weed bed in the middle and a drop on the other side of that weed bed of 14 feet. So when you're in these small waters, it is amazing. If you're sitting in that weed bed in the middle, you could literally cast from one side of the river to the other side. And the fish that are in this short stretch of water is phenomenal. When people say you catch a large fish, move on, you're not going to catch any others. The people I've fished with can tell you that's not always the case. In this particular stretch of body water, we've had multiple fish pulled out, as well as Bertha. Bertha measured 57 inches, and I have not been lucky enough to catch her in the fall, although I've tried, but she's still there. I've caught her in the last 4 years on 3 occasions. The first time I caught her was on there's a picture of her being released. The first time I caught her was on a handlebars blazing walleye bucktail. There's a good little story with that. We were fishing in the river with my girlfriend. She said, "Hey, why don't we move over to this weed bed?" So I moved over to the weed bed. She had, unfortunately, her hook caught in the net. So she was untangling it. I took the first cast and whammo, Bertha was caught. The other time, I caught her doing a slow troll, just drifting practically down the river with a Frank Thirsty lure, and she hit again. And the last time I seen her was last summer in July. I was fishing with a friend. She went and put the net in the water as I was bringing her to the side of the boat. And unfortunately, she did not let go of the bag of the net, and the fish bounced on the rim of the net and got off. So, Bertha, I'm coming back for you now. So these are some of the baits that I use when I fish these waters. The bucktails, I like the handlebar bucktails, and in those particular colors, I like the orange blades and the black and orange skirts with gold tinsel. I feel they represent the bait fish in that water, mostly being red horse minnows and suckers, I should say. These baits work phenomenal. The waters are tea stained and can be very dark. You don't need elaborate tackle when you go into these waters. One, you're in a small vessel or a canoe, and second, it's very easy to tip, and there's just no room on the vessel that you're on. So I'm just showing a few of the baits that I encounter and use. If we can go to the next one, I'm a big matlock user from Supernatural Baits, so thank you, Duff's Theory, for that. These baits work phenomenal. I'm one of probably the few guys that actually cast these baits into these river systems, and the wobble and search for center that they produce are phenomenal. Go to the next one there, Scotty. There's a thirsty lure. That top lure produced for me on the Petawawa River system 14 fish last season. It's pretty chewed up and time to get another one. So the jointed yellow perch has been a phenomenal bait for me. And if that's not running, it's a madlock that's always running behind the boat. The Sapatar bait is a bait I enjoy post-spawn when I'm fishing outside weed beds where there is a deeper hole. It's a great search bait. It has a real deep dive curve that I enjoy, and it has produced a lot of fish for me. So thank you for that, Tony. When I find that the fish are not biting or they're very slow moving, I like to throw on jerk baits. Bill Craig's Mr. Muskie Lure Slimer has just phenomenal for me last year on the Ottawa River outside of Arnprior. I hooked 2 fish over 50 on it, and I've caught several fish up in Madawaska and in the park with that bait. It's a walleye pattern. One of the things I do a lot when I am fishing is I get a hold of the the walleye anglers, and they give me a feel for how the walleye bite is, and I adjust my fishing to it. I feel that especially in the evening when the walleyes are moving in to feed, the muskies are not far behind. Some of the things I look for in these waters when I'm fishing is the moon eye run on the Upper Ottawa. I also look for any frogs in these small back lakes. If there's a lot of frog action, the water is calm. I enjoy throwing out top water, although I'm not a big top water guy. They have produced significantly for me, but these jerk baits are they're hard to beat when the bite is really slow. And in the fall, mostly in the Black Bear area, this has been my #1 bait. It's a Poseidon rubber by Team Rhino Outdoors. It's their exclusive color. It's the Criminal. And this fish, 2 years ago, put 3 muskies in the boat for me. Just a phenomenal way it works. Like I said, I'm not really a big rubber user, but when it comes fall time and you want to get to that fish that might be a little bit deeper, that's what I'll be throwing out. And white has always been a great color. So these are some of the fish caught along in the park. You can see the motors up because there's a motor restriction in that section of the water. They're not always the biggest fish, although there are like fish like Bertha in there, but you will catch multiple fish from 36 to mid 40s in these stretches of water. You have to look for them, but they are there, and you know, they're just phenomenal fisheries. You're fishing in a stretch of the water that looks like a canyon, whether you're in the Barron River or you're in the Petawawa River. This one was taken out of Black Bay, way up on the Barron River stretch. So as muskie anglers, you want to take care of successful releases. The nice thing about these waters when you're in there, they're very clean fish. A lot of them have never seen some of these musky lures, because a lot of the canoers that I see there, they're targeting walleye or smallmouth bass in these waters. And when you do hook into these fish, anybody that's fished these waters knows you get a fish in the boat, and it does not want to give up. It is fighting you from the time it is hooked to the time it is released. They just don't lay there and say, "Oh, I've been caught again." These fish are extremely aggressive fish, and I don't use small baits per se. Most of the baits I use are all 8 inches or greater. And the reason for that is it works. It works for me, and it's rare you'll see me throw a small bait out there. So thank you. I'm opening it up for questions after Kert. The Upper Ottawa in the Madawaska area holds tremendous fishery up there. It is not heavily pressured at all. And if you're fishing Madawaska, I would go upstream from Madawaska, and you just have to watch the water there because it can be very treacherous with a lot of rocks. The structure in these waters is phenomenal. Kert, flip it over to you, buddy.
Thanks, Jaime. Yeah, it's great to be here with everybody today. It's been a wonderful day watching all these accomplished anglers give us lots of tips. I've taken quite a number of notes today from some real accomplished people that I hope people really paid attention to some of these seminars. Today, I get to talk to you about two little stretches of water. I'm going to start off with the Ottawa River out of Arnprior, Ontario. I'm not going to talk about the entire stretch of river because it is quite large. So I'm going to break it down into a stretch which would be from Norway Bay to Arnprior proper. On that stretch of waterway, this is the Madawaska River, but as you're seeing the Madawaska come down through Stewartville into Arnprior, and then the lower Ottawa goes all the way into the Ottawa River. You'll see it this is the Google Maps, I believe, and you can see all these beautiful tributaries that are coming off, which are all navigable. So that's the lower Ottawa that comes in through Arnprior and then pours out on the other side of the dam. And that's lower Arnprior that comes out onto the mighty Ottawa River. And as you can see, the Ottawa is so much more vast than the Madawaska River at that point. The two stretches that we're going to talk about right now is going to be here in Arnprior and then just upriver from Arnprior a little bit. So we'll start here in Arnprior. If you're going to fish this piece in Arnprior, there's a very good boat launch. A little steep, but it's right in Arnprior proper off the lower Madawaska River that pours out into the Ottawa. At that point, you basically have two choices. You can go right or you go left. Both have good fishing opportunities. If you're a caster, as you come out of the river, there's a giant weed bed right to the right of the launch. So it gives you a good opportunity to kind of throw some casts and work your way around that. The shoreline on the Ottawa River is mainly rock. You will find weeds, but they're patchy. It's not going to be huge, vast weed beds like you would say fishing the Kawarthas, where you go for 1.5 miles up or 1.5 kilometers up a shoreline, and it's all just a monster weed bed. We don't have that for the most part. We do have a few spots, but they're far and few between. Most of our spots are rock. Water tables can be anywhere from fishing from 1 foot in the summertime, right up on top of these small little flats we're talking about that would be covered with weed, to the falling off into the 12 to 14 foot, right into the 30, 50, 100 foot range. In the past, in the summertime, we'll concentrate on fishing the shallows, weed beds. 1 foot to 12 foot range is probably 90% of my fishing in the summertime, casting and trolling. Rarely will I go deep unless the water gets really warm. The Ottawa River, as you come out of Arnprior and you're working the shorelines long, you're going to notice it's it's all rock. The waterway, we are very lucky. The charting is actually pretty good. So if you have Navionics charting on that piece of waterway, it is fairly good. There are some spots that aren't. Rocks that'll jump out at you, and you always have to worry about dead heads. I highly recommend, if you're going to be on that water, you never go full tilt in anything less than 15 feet of water. Take yourself out to that 15 foot and deeper when you want to go full tilt, because those logs, they move around. They've been there for 100 years from all the logging, and over the course of the summer, they will stand up and they'll catch you. Everybody's been caught once or twice. I'm sure Jaime can attest to that. But yeah, fishing that waterway. Now, lure choices. So I used to be a much more of a caster than a troller. As I've gotten older, I've kind of tended to more kind of a 50-50. But casting is still my love. I'll start off my day every day casting 2 lures. It's always a topwater and a glide bait. Topwater choices, which I find are most effective for me, are a Blucher Top Raider. Probably should be a staple, and everybody that fishes top water should have one in their boat. And then I use these. This is called the Big Mama, Psycho Sister. It's a lot bigger. It's kind of like a Top Raider on steroids. Phenomenal noise you can get out of these things. Now, the one thing I will say is a lot of top water fishermen, when they're fishing these, I've noticed guys I fish with, they'll burn them back. So they're tossing them in there and making these things just hum. I know that works. I know there's strikes that happen on them. But from my personal experience, what I find works best is a slow crawl. Having that where the tail's just going blub, 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 blub. I find you get the best hits, and they just come out of nowhere. I've had so many hits on a topwater right at boat side, especially on the Ottawa, where you just don't see them. Water clarity on the Ottawa is suspect at best. It's not as dirty as the lower Ottawa, but it's definitely tea stained. And like when we had floods a couple years ago, the water was really mucky for pretty much the whole summer. The sediment count was really high in the water table. Color wise, as I said, black. Everybody should have black baits in their box. I know lots of muskie guides have been talking about that all day long, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. Having a black baits in your box in multiple different types. So, I have spinner baits I run. Guess what? Black on the tail. I mean, not the only color I use, but definitely one of my favorites. The other one in a glide bait that I'll use when I go out in the morning. So glide baits, everybody should have a black suic. So that's one of my favorite glide baits. Dark colored days, I'll throw this. So if it's overcast, that sucker's in the water, and weighted. Make sure you get the weighted ones. I do not like the unweighted suics. I find the hang time on these are so much better. You don't have to work them as hard. And once they get all chewed up and waterlogged like this one, primo. The other bait that I use heavily, both the Ottawa and the Madawaska River and Petawawa, pretty much anywhere I go, are Hughes River glide baits. Made out of Wisconsin, Jimmy Wilson. I've known the guy for probably close to 20 years. Primo bait maker. There's another color I use, nice natural perch. But these dark colors with the orange bellies, it's black and orange. It's a staple for most musky waters up in our area. I don't care what stretch you fish, you're always going to be able to produce fish on a black and orange type bait. Glide baits, I'll just touch real quick on this too, because we don't have a whole lot of time today. When you're working a glide bait, give it hang time. I find 99% of the hits on a glide bait is when you're working it slow and you're leaving that hang time pause. So sometimes it's difficult because you can't get the right glide bait to do what you want it to do. But there's enough good quality glide bait makers on the market today that you're able to find one that works for you. And when you can do that light little twitch and it does that slide and just kind of sits there and hangs, that's when the hits are going to occur. So that's a great bait. So that's my kind of casting, how I'll start my day casting. So if I was going to troll, same thing. I'm going to run either a spinner bait. I do spinner bait troll a lot, depending on the waterway, with the size and the type of spinner bait I'll use. For instance, on the Ottawa River, a lot of times I'm trolling inlines now. This is one of my smaller boo baits from Dadson, but behind me there you'll see some of my big ones. And I troll a lot of those as well in the summertime. I'm running them back, rod tip in the water. Once they're wet, they will stay down. Speeds, I'm running around 4 miles an hour. It's about where I find the best, most effective representation in the water is. Then I'll switch to I'll go something if they're being finicky, I'm switching up to something a little smaller. So a friend of mine, George Taylor, makes these for me, and they're just a simple little skirt bait. But going through the water, I've caught umpteen fish on this thing over a course of a season, especially when the fishing gets super slow. We'll dry mouth. So yeah, that's the Ottawa. Now trolling the Ottawa as well. Crankbaits. So I'll use a lot of. I use thirsty baits. You can see actually the same one that Jaime was referring to earlier. The brown one's hanging right up behind me there. yeah, exactly. Hey, good taste, Jaime? Yeah, we all fish the same color water, so it's kind of common that we'd all have the same baits. But I'll run stuff. This is a River Slick, 6-inch throat punch. I'll run them really shallow behind the boat. Like I'm running out maybe, I'm going to say 3 to 5 feet off the back of the boat, right in the prop wash, as long as I can pick the weed edge. Because the problem is if you get into those patchy spots where the weeds are coming up, it's a constant battle to try to, if it comes up too thick, is to take them off. But if you're in and out, in and out, in and out off of these edges, it's in a very effective way, especially if you can have 2 anglers in a boat and have one of these out doing that. So a lot of times when me and Tyler Duncan are fishing together in the summertime, that's exactly what we're doing. Tyler, what are you running? I'm going to run the opposite. We're going to see what works. If all of a sudden we see 2 fish have come in on a spinner bait, nothing's coming in on a crankbait, well, you know darn well we're going to put on the spinner baits, and that's what we're going to run. So there is also a deeper, oh, there's a nice fish from the Ottawa, and that's my biggest fish from the Ottawa. That would be a 56 by 24 that was caught in the fall, just off of Armprior, actually. And that's a quick little funny story on that one. I was coming out of Armprior, and I decided everything was icing up in the bays, and I was coming out, and I'd fished pretty hard that day. And I decided I was going to fish out of Armprior and go to the green buoy, which is off to the right of the Madawaska when you're coming out of Armprior. As I pull up to that spot, even in late fall, pulling a spinnerbait, I thought, I'm going to go this far, cut the motor, and then I'm going to go to a different spot. So I cut the motor, I stood up, I grabbed the rod out of the rod holder, I gave it 2 rips, and on the second rip, that fish hit like a ton of bricks. It pulled back like there was no tomorrow. The rod just bent straight over, and I knew it was on like Donkey Kong. A phenomenal fight. Went back extremely healthy because that water was ice cold. So that was a lot of fun in the fall. So I'll troll spinnerbaits even in the fall. As I've gotten older, I've gotten into a lot heavier spinnerbait, so I'm getting them down more into the water columns in that 18 to 20 foot range. I have no problem trolling a spinnerbait down that deep with full confidence of catching fish. I know they do it all the time on the St. Lawrence, and it's been very effective. So I'm going to jump over and now talk about the Madawaska. Mad is near and dear to my heart. When I moved to Armprior full-time over 20 years ago, my wife and I bought a house on the Madawaska. Yes, I bought a house on this waterway because it had muskies in it. I figured, what the hell? If I'm going to live on the water, I might as well be able to fish it. But not only muskie, this waterway holds really good populations of large and smallmouth bass, pike, walleye. Pike are on a smaller population. This muskies seem to keep them in check pretty good. Lots of different species of catfish. There are suckers. You will get crappie, black crappie. Just to name a few. So it's a pretty amazing fishery. The main difference between the waterways is the Armprior and all that stretch of Armprior all the way up on the Ottawa is all rock. You do get your weeds and some sand and some dirt and mud, but for the most part, all the shorelines, everything's all rock. All the islands, rock. Everything's rock. As you jump up onto the Madawaska above Armprior, it's a reservoir lake. It was constructed in 1976 with the completion of the Armprior Power Generation Dam. Then over time, they had cut down all the trees, expropriated the land around it because of the new floodplain, cut down all the trees, left the stumps, took most of the trees out of there, and then this thing filled in like a giant fishbowl. When that happened, the wild populations of muskie and all these other ones, just like a giant aquarium, the bigger the aquarium, The more fish, it's more area for them to spawn, more area for them to not only reproduce, but have more areas to hunt and fish. And there's more fish populations. All the smaller fish all jumped up in populations. So the muskie fishery has been very healthy.
Get our
fish it
segment
now.
starts getting.
Oh, sorry.
Hello,
Running out of
guys.
time.
Hey
How
guys,
are you?
are we running low on time?
How did no? You guys aren't over time yet.
Okay,
but
great.
You have a few minutes. I think that everyone knows that Jamie's super important to me, and that I wanted to be a part of the segment. And so,
Of course.
welcome
Well,
me to your segment, please.
Great to have you. Great to have you.
Welcome, Ryan.
Wonderful. Yeah. When we hit the bottom of the hour here, I'm going to keep Jamie on for a minute or two to wrap up with me. And so it gets really complicated at this time of the show because we end up switching our segment over. And so, but we'll get to that after. For now, please carry on as I'm here. What did I interrupt?
Oh, that's okay. We're just starting to talk about the Madawaska. And actually, I just got a quick question at the bottom of my screen there from a Steve Shaw asking me about when I'm using glide baits. Do I use a lengthy glide or a shorter glide? I like to go a lengthier glide. So when I do my twitch, it's a very light twitch. My rod of choice is either a 7.6 St. Croix jerk, the jerk. That is my number one rod, or sometimes I'll even pull out the 8.6 Big Ranger, depending upon if I just want a little more hang time or if I'm looking a little longer on the cast. When I do drop the rod tip very lightly, the cruise is very long. And I wait for it to almost stop and start to pause down before I start the cruise the other way. I don't work it aggressively at all. It's very light pause. Light twitch, light pause every time. It's been very effective for me. So back to the Madawaska, as we were talking about. So they cut down all the trees and left the stumps, and they filled this thing up. Well, the wild populations of muskies expanded. All the other fisheries expanded. So the fishery has become a very, very healthy, self-sustaining fishery over the years that wouldn't have happened to the extent it did without the power generation dam going into being installed. The muskie population there, we've caught muskies over the years of bass fishing with people as small as like 12 inches long on a year. On a regular year of trolling there, I catch them anywhere from 15 inches right up to 50 inches. A rarity, most of the fish, they're not quite as big lengthwise as the Ottawa River fish. So if you're looking for that big Bertha, the Ottawa River is definitely a much better place for you to go. The Madawaska, it's more of a numbers fishery, a lot smaller fishery, but it's fun. Just all I ask is when you come to fish it, please, take care of the fish, make sure they go back promptly, and look after the fish that we have. It is really, really a wonderful fishery. The biggest fish I've ever had out of the waterway, I was out fishing with my very good friend Bob Sterling from St. Croix Fishing Rods, Highline Tackle. And one of the pictures that I have up there, you'll see him with a big slob. That's a Madawaska fish. That was caught during the Muskie Canada outing, Cardigan and Pryor, a number of years ago on a bluebird sky. That was last year. I'll tell you about that fish after. That was my big one. It'll come up here in a sec here. There's Bob's fish. That was 53 inches of glory. See how flat that waterway? So Bob's big time caster. Bob doesn't like to troll. So me and Bob, my whole thing on the Madawaska is when I'm going between spots, I troll. I never travel between spots without trolling. I believe those fish, because of the size of the waterway, it's just over 18 kilometers long. Those fish are traveling around all day long. So the fish I find at one end right now, 5 hours from now, could be 10 kilometers upriver. They travel that much because the food travels that much. They don't have to stay still. So Bob and I were casting, and we had to cross this bay to go and fish another piece of structure. And Bob's like, oh, I said, we're going to troll. And he's like, oh, we're going to troll. So he pulls out, and I'll never forget it. It was a Grim Reaper walleye pattern. And he pulled out. I said, oh, that's good looking bait, Bob. He puts that out. We were running probably around, I'm going to say about 50, 60 yards back. About 50 yards back, I'd say we're running the baits. We're coming across the bay, and we're probably getting around maybe 20 to 30 feet from the edge of where we're going to stop the boat. Well, then Bob's rod goes off. And you just see how flat the water was that day with the bluebird sky. That fish came out of the water sky high into the air, went crazy. Well, that was Bob's biggest fish. I believe to date, that's his biggest fish he's ever caught.
Hard to top.
So,
Awesome.
well, that's why we call him 50. That's why he's called 53-inch Bob now.
I would take that name any day of the week. That sounds perfectly acceptable to me.
But fishing that waterway, it's really cool because it's high. It's the rock on the Ottawa and it's sand on the Mad. So the Madawaska, all the high shorelines as you're going by, you'll notice it's all eroded, and you'll see trees all falling down into the water, which is great for structure. I mean, I had a bass guy I took up there a couple summers ago. He wanted to go bass fishing, and like I took him to a few of my prime bass spots that I have, and we got onto Muskies almost immediately. And he's like, I don't want to bass fish anymore.
Yes, no kidding. Yeah, ever again. So tell me, someone wants to know from you folks if you ever use live bait such as suckers. I know a few of Jamie's tricks that I will never reveal. I had to do a blood handshake with him to learn some of those things. But tell me.
I'm not against sucker fishing. I have done it a little bit in the past. But on the Ottawa, because we're a border water in Quebec, you can't use live bait of any sort. So we're literally down the middle of the Ottawa River in Armfar. If you were going to fish strictly on the Ontario side, go ahead. You can use a live sucker. But if you go across that border, you better not even have the bait in your boat because they will nail you.
However, once you cross that border, you can have a beer. You just can't have live bait.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Yeah. You can have beer in the boat on the Quebec side. Can't do it in Ontario. What the hell, eh?
Cruising along, drinking a beer in your boat, and I'm like, "There's no way that's legal." They're like, "Oh yeah."
So how about you, Jamie? You were talking about.
I seldom, almost never use them. For one, in the park, you're not allowed live bait, and I think that's been an excellent rule to have. It stops any invasive species going in there. So no, I guess my short answer is no, I don't use live bait. I have done it with other anglers late in the fall where you have a rod down and the other guy is either chucking rubber or something. But no, normally I won't use live bait. There was a time where I used dead bait. And that's just because I was camping along the Petawawa River in the park. And actually, I was with my good friend Dusty, and we were on shore putting a dead quick strike rig out there while we're enjoying a few beers and a campfire. And all of a sudden, your rods are going off nonstop. Yeah, but other than that, no, because I'm in a small boat and there's no live bait allowed in the park. So.
Well, awesome. I know I've used dead bait, never in the park either, because that's still considered live bait to some of the well-respected and highly needed MNRF officers. So I'm always willing to deal with that. Corey wants to know if there's a horsepower limit. Absolutely. If you're in the park, doesn't matter what part of the park you're in, your power limit, some is as low as 2.5. And others go up to 40 and 60. And then there's only a couple lakes that are unlimited power.
Just one lake.
Just Opeongo that's unlimited?
Yes.
Okay. So, which doesn't have any muskies. So that doesn't matter. But they do have a heck of a lot of lake trout if you learn how to fish for them with Fish with Jamie. And so let's see. Steve Shaw. Kert, when using a glide bait, do you get the bait to have a lengthy glide? No, I think this is. I think this might be. We did? Okay, I thought that this was asking about the length of your pull versus the length of your glide, but
it's really short. It's a little short, like just dropping the rod tip, just literally just dunk.
Yeah, if I can just jump on there,
please do.
When I use the glide baits such as this one here, what I do is I'll cast it out. I'll give it a couple little twitches, a long pull, long pause, quick little twitch, long pull. So I make it as erratic as possible. I don't do routine stuff. So if you're seeing me out there working a jerk bait, it looks quirky and everything, but there's no system or no rhythm to it. I like to really mix it up with short little twitches and long pulls, long pause, short pause. So I really mix it up, and it seems to produce really well. I hope I answered that question.
You did, and I've personally watched you catch fish on that exact bait. I was catching nothing at the time, I might add, and Jaime had his third or fourth fish on in a row. So I very quickly made friends with Bill Craig in order to get my own, because.
And by the way, he is joining Muskies Canada.
Is that right? Hey, we're happy to have someone with his experience. He's also one of the only people I know that has a certificate that says he live released a world record fish. And so I've enjoyed fishing with him. I hope to do it again, and it'll be even better when he's a Muskies Canada member. So that's great. So we're at the bottom of our segment. I'm going to ask the producer to split our screens evenly here, so that my two guests are split up with me. And someone bought tires from your dad.
Yeah, my family owned Burlington Tire for over 40 years in Burlington, Ontario. So that's somebody's probably recognized. One of the pictures that I had up was my father. My dad's biggest fish is 45 inches in the Kawarthas, and it was actually caught on a Father's Day many years ago. Yeah. I took him out muskie fish for a weekend.
On that beautiful story, we're going to hang up on you, Kert. I'm going to keep Jaime for one more minute. Nice to have you. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me today.
Really
Wonderful
great
job,
info.
guys.
So, Jaime, to this hour is a really crucial one as we transition back and forth. We actually have to end this broadcast. The limitations of Facebook, we've reached them. And I can't be happier than we are right now. And so I can't believe how well this has worked. I mean, I'm not going to say we all didn't put in a lot of work because we did. But the fact that it actually worked is really exceptional. And so we're one of these days, you and I are going to have to tell the story at length as to how we met and how we became friends, and now how we can call each other brother. And so, yes, my brother, thank you for being part of this. Nothing makes me happier to know that someone that I care about is also a Muskies Canada member. We're so lucky to have you, and thank you very much. And
thanks, Ryan. If I can just say a quick thank you, I'd like to thank Muskies Canada and all its members, the Muskie Odyssey staff, and all the behind-scene people who have brought this today. Scotty, thank you. All the bait makers for all your innovation, hard work, and producing, in my opinion, the world's greatest muskie baits made here in Canada. And you, the muskie angler, who care for the fishery and take the time to successfully have live releases so we can catch these fish another day. Thank you very much. Please join Muskies Canada. Love you guys. Brother, I will see you very soon.
On the water, buddy. On the water. So as we say farewell to my true and great friend, Jaime Sebastian, and kick him off the screen so I can be on the screen by myself in large, it's Jaime and I have this really special bond, and we bonded over Muskies Canada. And if you weren't tuned in earlier, I can tell you that because of Muskies Canada, and this is going to sound like a sales pitch, but I don't get any money for this. I don't even get a discount. Because of Muskies Canada, my life is truly better. It is a fishing club, and it does sponsor, pay for, and support research. It does drive our governments to take care of our fisheries and natural resources. But just as a fishing club, just as its base, Muskies Canada has made my life better because I have friends like Jaime. I could name 100 of them. In fact, I want to put a few of them on the screen.